Hello, everyone. My name is Renaud Salmon. I'm the creative director of Amouage, and I have the chance to be tonight, actually, in Oman, together with Cécile. Cécile Zarokian is So we have a beautiful one. My name is Renaud Salmon. I'm the creative director of Amouage.
Cécile, go ahead and introduce yourself.
But Renaud, I think you didn't finish, right?
Yeah, we are just trying to get him off mute and we will get going again. Cécile, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Cécile Zarokian. I'm a perfumer and I'm in Paris right now. It's 7 p.m.
Yeah, we are just trying to get him off mute and we will. Renaud, it just sounded like you have the stream open somewhere in your room or maybe in another tab. If we can check and make sure we can close that so we don't hear the feedback.
Are we good now? Okay. Well, should we go again? So, hello, everyone. My name is Renaud Salmon, and my apologies for the small, actually, technical interaction to start this live, but at least we are very relaxed now. I'm tonight with Cécile Zarokian. I say tonight because I am based in Muscat, in Oman. It's 10 p.m. right now, and I think for Cécile, it's 7 p.m. in Paris. And if I understood correctly, it's 10 a.m. on the West Coast, 1 p.m. on the East Coast. So we are connecting the world. And it seems that everything is working very well right now. Is it working on your side, Cécile?
Yes, totally. I hope everyone is listening properly too.
Good. Well, I would like to say a big thank you to you, Cécile, because I know you're very busy. So thank you for joining me in that discussion about what makes Amouage special. I would like to also say a big thank you to Nordstrom for giving us the possibility, to talk about perfumery. Perfumery is our life, is our passion, is our job as well. And today we want to talk about one specific brand, which is Amouage. I work for Amouage. I'm the creative director of Amouage. Cécile is an independent perfumer, so she's not an employee of Amouage, but she does create for Amouage. We create together beautiful fragrances. We are talking about some of them tonight. But Cécile, before we start, maybe do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Yes, thank you, Renaud. Hi, everyone, again, maybe. So first of all, yes, I'm super excited to be there with you from Paris, 7 p.m., you're right. And so thank you, Renaud, Amouage, and Nordstrom for this opportunity. I'm super happy to share a little bit of the, let's say, the behind the scenes and our everyday job, but as you said, passion. So in a couple of words, so I'm a perfumer. I founded my company 14 years ago. But it's been almost 20 years that I've been working in the perfume industry. And I have created quite a few fragrances for Amouage. And I'm happy to share a little bit of everything about them with you tonight.
Good. Well, first of all, I saw in the comments that some people are not familiar with Amouage. So Amouage, I think the name sounds a little bit French, but Amouage is not French. Amouage is a luxury perfume house from the Sultanate of Oman. So the Sultanate of Oman is a beautiful country next to Dubai. And how would you describe Amouage, Cécile? What does it mean to you as a perfumer?
So that's a huge one for starters. Well, Amouage means a lot because actually that's the first brand I have worked with when I was started my career. I was back in the days I was still an apprentice. I was learning at the school, Izika, and so I started with Amouage creating Epic in 2008, Epic Woman. And so Amouage is a beautiful brand that I was so happy, you know, especially as a student, to be lucky to work on these briefs, and then very happy again as an independent back to Amouage, I think 5 years ago, because Amouage is a beautiful brand, and as you said, related. I mean, it's like, for me, it's almost the same when you talk about Amouage. For me, I think about Oman, because it goes along. And Oman is a very beautiful country that I really, really fell in love, that I discovered first. And I think what I like with Amouage is that all the fragrances, all the stories that we're trying to tell through the fragrances reflects what is the beauty of Oman, and everything that is really so specific of Oman, like the generosity. People are so welcoming, and I think it's something that really reflects with the brand, because again, it's interconnected. And I'm sure we're gonna explore more about the reasons why I love Amouage, because again, you do such a wonderful job as a creative director, meaning I am only working on the fragrance, but what I love is that everything is consistent through the bottle, the design, the packaging, the artwork, the story, everything. And so yeah, it's one of the reasons that we can talk about, and I'm sure we're gonna deeper after.
Okay, so if you had to summarize, I know it might be difficult, but Amouage in one word, what is the word that would come to mind?
I think generosity.
I would say that as well. And generosity, you might be answering, I don't know, from the point of view of like the fragrances, but I think also in terms of spirit, Amouage was created back in 1983 by His late Majesty Sultan Qaboos of Oman, because he wanted actually to offer a gift to the people visiting Oman, to the important people visiting Oman. And he wanted that gift to contain a little piece of Oman, so ingredients coming from Oman. And that's why originally in 1983, you could not buy an Amouage fragrance. You had to actually visit Oman and to be gifted Amouage by the Sultan. And that's why, if I recall correctly, in 1985, the New York Times wrote about Amouage fragrances. You can find that in the archives of the New York Times. And the New York Times wrote something like, Amouage is the most expensive perfume in the world that you cannot buy. And I think it kind of started, the legend of Amouage. The very first fragrance was named Gold. The bottle was made out of silver coated with gold. The fragrance was really expensive to make, and it contained a few ingredients from Oman. And when I need to answer the question, like, what makes Amouage special, I think part of the answer is the ingredients. We use at Amouage around 700 different ingredients, not in every single perfume, because a perfume formula is obviously shorter than 700 ingredients, but we tend to like to use actually, yours that might be obvious for you, but I just want to, to clarify for everyone. But then there are some ingredients that we call our signature ingredients. And Cécile, if you have to pick one, what is the one ingredient that would be the signature ingredient of Amouage?
Frankincense, for sure.
Okay, so I'm going to show, thank you for giving a correct answer. I'm going to show frankincense. And I want to show actually different qualities of frankincense. So we see one that is a bit more brown. We see this one that is a little bit more yellow and green. Can you tell us, Cécile, what is frankincense technically? What is this?
So what you're showing is the resin coming from the frankincense tree. And why I answered frankincense, it's because Oman is very famous for its frankincense trees, especially in Salalah, in south of Oman, that I really recommend to visit. And so we cut the tree in order to pick up the resin coming from it, and then we distill it to use the frankincense oil, and then we can use it in our perfumes.
Okay, so we take this resin, we do a hydro distillation. We get actually a very good yield because 1 kilogram of resin is going to give us around 100 milliliter of essential oil. And then, well, we use the oil in perfume. So typically, here is frankincense oil, quite pure. We use the oil in perfume. However, you can also burn the resin. And I think, people usually associate frankincense. When I ask people, what does it smell like, according to you, frankincense? Most of the people, I think, naturally would say smoke or smoky or something like that. And I think it's because usually we experience frankincense burns, for example, during celebrations, ceremonies, in rituals, and so on. However, when you smell frankincense essential oil, Cécile, I think you will agree with me, the smell is much more than smoke, and it's not actually that smoky, correct?
No, and actually the oil is not that smoky at all. It's very different. So it's very fresh. It's like peppery, zesty, lemony, really citrusy, grapefruit. It has that what we call terpenic facet, meaning that so it has this vibrancy. It's not smoky at all when you smell the frankincense oil. And for me, for example, I remember when I was learning, the raw materials when I was a student. For me, it was really associated the oil, frankincense oil, to the smell of the sauna. And because it's very, very different. Of course, it's woody. And it's true that, as you said, we use the frankincense resin a lot to burn it. And actually, that's one of the first things that you smell when you just land in Oman, and that I love when I'm coming. from the airport. You already smell the burned frankincense. And yes, it's a quite complex ingredient. And depending on if you use the oil or the resinoid that has the smoky aspect and more warmth, then it's going to be different. The same ingredients, but different process and different, let's say, texture, if we can verbalize it.
Okay, so that was one ingredient. So frankincense that we harvest in the south of Oman most of the year, around 8 months out of 12 of the year. And it's an ingredient that we harvest sustainably. Everything is fully traceable. You can actually find the full traceability on, on our social media and on a specific website. The location is called Wadi Dawka, so Dawkah, if you want to know about it. It's open to the public, you can visit. It's quite special. I saw in the comments that obviously some people acknowledge the fact that it's important in different religions. It's also important in aromatherapy. It's an ingredient that you can eat. And it has actually very good properties. So the best way to experience that ingredient, if you can get a little bit of resin, and I think this is something, the resin is obviously the best quality, you find it in Oman, but I think some companies actually do export resin to the US and around the world. But you take a little drop of resin like this, you put it overnight in a bottle of water, and then the day after you can drink the water, you get frankincense water. It's very good for skin hydration. It's good for health, like obviously health, but stress. And it's good for digestion as well. So quite a beautiful product. We love to use it in our fragrances. We use it in most of our Amouage fragrances, not all of them, but most of them. It's an ingredient that you would smell in the top notes, in the heart notes, and in the base notes of fragrances. It adds a lot of vibration to the fragrances. There is another ingredient, Cécile, that you've used in one of your iconic creations. That is Epic Woman, but also one of your attars that is called Rose Accord. So what is that specific ingredient that is, I would say, quite rare and that grows very high in Oman?
The rock rose that I was lucky to experience during the harvesting. And again, that is very, very different. It's a rose that is growing in terraces in Oman, in high altitude. So it's not the usual flat field that you may have experienced or seen in online or if you're lucky enough to go there and harvest them. And yes, it's a very, very different rose and specific to Oman.
Yeah, so it's a specific rose. I have, actually, it's quite precious here. So I have the last drops of the 2023 harvest season of the roses. So just for you to know, I mentioned that the yield of the frankincense is really high. The roses, it's quite different. You need 4 tons of petals. So imagine, like, it's huge. It's like a full room actually filled with petals in order to get a small bottle actually of pure rose oil. So extremely expensive ingredient. And I'm going to try to answer a few questions as I see them, as we go. Some people are asking, is frankincense similar to oud? I would say no. Oud is an ingredient that is associated sometimes with perfumery, from the Middle East and so on, but a very different ingredient, and we can talk maybe a bit about it because Cécile has some creations with oud. How to store your fragrances, always, I would say, in a dry place, ideally not exposed to the light, and not close to a source of heat. So the better is really like in a drawer or in your wardrobe or something like that. I recommend to keep the boxes. Usually I keep the boxes. Do you keep the boxes of your fragrances, Cécile, or not?
Of course.
Yeah, so you keep them. They're usually quite beautiful, particularly you can see the Amouage ones. It's always good to protect the fragrances. And if you do so, you can keep your yeah, that's a beautiful one. We are going to talk about that creation. You can keep your fragrances for quite some time, even if you have started using them, you know, in good conditions. Now, the name of the rose I see is called the rock rose. So R-O-C-K, like the rocks. And it's called so because it grows actually between the rocks of the mountains, which gives it this kind of very mineralic and very vibrant character in a way. The last ingredient that we loved actually, and I'm going to try to find it. I don't know where I put it. It's an ingredient I should not lose, but I cannot see it anymore. I have prepared it before the talk. The ingredient is called ambergris. And I lost my piece of ambergris. So
You
I have
had
a
it.
bit of a challenge. So do you want to talk? I found it. Okay, so it's here. So ambergris is an ingredient that we use actually, we used to use quite a lot at Amouage, like a few decades ago and so on. And we are using it less and less because it's an ingredient of animalic origin. And today we have quite a lot of substitutes to that ingredient. However, it's a beautiful ingredient that makes fragrances very long lasting. So Cécile, do you want to say a little bit more about ambergris and maybe, you know, some wrong ideas that people might have about ambergris and so on and what it is in the end?
So it used to be used as a what we call a fixator to kind of, you know, enhance the fragrance, make it to have some depth, and for the ambery facet for sure. And because, so what is it actually? It's natural ingredients coming from the toothed whales, but with no harm at all. It's just a natural, spontaneous, actually product of the toothed whale. And because the toothed whale is eating calamars and it's hurting its stomach. And then this is the resin, kind of resin, not technically resin, but let's call it resin that the toothed whale is naturally producing, and then that is floating for how long, we don't know, but for many months, years sometimes. And that's someday you just collect them on the beach, and then you found this block, this kind of rock at the end. On the beach, and that has this ambery facet with this iodine effect, a kind of salty because of many months spent in the sea. And nowadays we have analyzed what was in the ambergris. And so we have other way to reproduce some of the facets that are there.
And I see a question related to ambergris that says, I see lately ambroxan is replacing ambergris. I guess it's because of the cost. So, I mean, I would say cost can be an explanation. However, reason at Amouage, the main reason that you know, we would consider actually using substitutes to ambergris at Amouage is one, sometimes we get the request actually of for fragrances that don't contain ingredients of animalic origin. And it's valid particularly for our products, for example, that are distributed in hotels, as an example. And it's also, it makes some products actually difficult to export. You need like specific authorizations and so on. So ambergris is sometimes a little bit complex from a regulation point of view. However, it's really part of the heritage of Amouage. So this is something that that we are trying to safeguard in actually everything that has to do with the heritage of Amouage. So we talked about three very important ingredients for Amouage: the frankincense that gives this very unique signature, the rose that is exquisite and I mean, really precious and expensive, and that gives a beautiful classic floral character when we use it in some fragrances. And the ambergris that explains the longevity of Amouage fragrances. If you had to describe, Cécile, the style of Amouage fragrances, how would you describe the style of an Amouage fragrance?
Oh, that's a tough one. What I would say is that first there's because again it depends on what the story we want to tell, but the common ground, let's say, is like high concentration. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the lowest might be 20 something. I mean, the average is like 25, and I think there's just a few of them that are below 25. And so you start at 25 and higher. So that's one point.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we can talk actually very soon about the concentration indeed, because some people might not be familiar with the concept. So we'll try to explain in a simple way what is concentration of a fragrance. But yeah, I would say also when it comes to the style of Amouage fragrances, I would tend to say like Amouage fragrances are usually quite generous, and we talked about Amouage and Oman being very generous, which means, you know, like usually quite complex fragrances with a complex evolution. You know, it's not something minimalistic with just like a very linear evolution. So generous, complex, long-lasting. Usually an Amouage fragrance would last the full day or even more, right, Cécile?
Yes.
Yeah,
Totally.
we agree on long-lasting. Do we agree on like, you know, a balance between classical and contemporary as well?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, twisting, beautiful, old classic, but not all, because it's going to be twisted and because it's going to be modern and it's going to be in a different way, in an Amouage way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do we agree that Amouage fragrances, on top of being long-lasting, are quite diffusive as well, right? You don't wear a fragrance, an Amouage fragrance, if you don't want to be smelled.
Yes, for sure. Even though, let's nuance it, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's just a statement and you want everybody to notice you. It's not like that. It's way more subtle, but for sure, it's not going to be like discreet at all, like a skin scent. That's something that just doesn't exist in a
So it's a signature with, as you mentioned, you know, some nuances and good taste in a way. I think that defines a bit the personality of Amouage fragrances, and linked to the generosity and to the technical qualities of those fragrances. We indeed tend to work with quite a high concentration. So the concentration, when we say in perfumery, you know, like the concentration of a perfume, what is it? A perfume in general, if I have to oversimplify a little bit, is a mix of two things. We have what we call the perfume concentrate, so the mix of all of the pure ingredients, and we have a solvent, so something that actually completes the fragrance, or in our case, you know, ethanol. So the ethanol, which is alcohol, contributes to the evaporation and diffusion of the fragrances. When we talk about, for example, 10% concentration, it means 10% of pure perfume, pure concentrate, and then 90% of ethanol. And sometimes we try to convey this idea of concentration by using simplified terminology. For example, like eau de cologne, eau de toilette, eau de parfum, extrait, and so on, which they give an idea to the client about the concentration, but they are not very accurate because they don't mean much. So that's why at Amouage, we said, well, we are going to reveal the actual concentration of our fragrances. The most important thing is not to work at the highest concentration at any cost. Most of the time it's good, it's better, because it means, you know, that It's going to provide more richness to the fragrances. But some fragrances, you know, they work very well at the right dosage of concentration. And in order to explain the concept of concentration,
I think we have a little bit of technical issue again. Sorry. Yes, same here. I think it was for them. Well, while we're waiting for Renaud, I just want to add, by the way, that's regarding the question about Amboxan. Actually, Amboxan is definitely not cheap. So I wouldn't say it's like a replacer for ambergris per se. And when you use Amboxan, it's going to be quite expensive. So no, it's definitely not a cheap way to substitute. And also, Renaud was just talking about the concentration, saying the highest concentration at any cost. And exactly, I mean, but it's going to explain more the concentration. But of course, if the concentration is higher, you're going to have more concentrate in the perfume. So it's going to be more expensive relating to that, I mean, the concentrate. But I hope we're going to have Renaud coming back to get back to his explanation. You're back. No, unmute.
I am back, Cécile. Sorry for that. I think the Wi-Fi shuts down at 10:30 p.m. In our manufacturer. We are not supposed to work anymore. So I'm connected from my phone. Hopefully the connection works. When did I disappear?
You were talking and explaining how works the concentration, like the solvent,
Yes.
the concentrates.
Super. So you explained everything and so on, and I wanted to show 4 different examples, you know, fragrances that you created. And you're going to tell us the concentration, why it's the right concentration, and also tell us a little bit about those creations, okay? So the first one I'm showing, what is the name, what is the concentration, and what is the story of that beautiful fragrance?
So it's material, it's 25% of concentration. So it means 25% of concentrate and the rest is alcohol. And it was the right concentration for this fragrance to properly diffuse. So material in a couple of words is all about vanilla, but vanilla meaning the vanilla beans, the pods. So it's not like overly sugary, for example. It's really the all the facets that you have in vanilla, meaning that, of course, there's the sweet, comforting, comfortable, addictive part of the vanilla that you all know, and that can maybe associated with let's say bakery and stuff like that. But if you do smell some real vanilla beans that you might use if you're cooking or in a pastry, you have this leathery part, a little bit animalic and spicy. And so material is all about the complexity and the duality that you find in the vanilla beans, with the sweet, addictive side, but also the deeper, rich, dark, and sensual parts of the leathery, spicy vanilla. Ah, so Renaud was spelling material, and then it was frozen again.
Well,
I don't know. Maybe it's a striking fragrance. I don't know. Ah, you're back.
oh my God. This is.
So you were smelling material, and then
Yeah, I was smelling material, and I wanted to say there was a question actually about if you have a favorite ingredient. Could we say that vanilla is one of your favorite ingredients? Do you have other ingredients that you really like?
I like many ingredients. I like the vanilla. I like let's say all
Or not?
materials. What? I don't know.
Yes? Can you hear me or not? No?
Yeah, I don't know. It was I don't know, something weird happened. So yes, I do have a couple of ingredients that I like, but actually it's not really about what I like, but what I want to tell through the fragrance, and then I'm using the ingredients accordingly.
Okay, good. So so that was 25% concentration material. And we name it an eau de parfum. Okay. If I'm going to skip one fragrance, we will come back to it later. If I show this one, what is this fragrance? And there's actually a number next to the name. So it's named Epic 56. Why that number?
It's 56% concentration. And so this is answering one of the questions that we had, meaning that the number close to the name indicates the percentage. And so the concentration that we were talking about, so Epic 56 is at 56% concentration. And so it was a different interpretation of Epic Woman, the first perfume that I created for Amouage, in a different way, in a more intense version, but of course richer and deeper, but with a couple of nuances regarding, for example, the rose that we mentioned before. The origin and the quality of it. I was using the Turkish oil, and I used the Rose Centifolia Absolute, and the dosage of the spices according to the concentration, because I had to reformulate like that so it will be vibrant, and the frankincense. Because as you said, just back to the concentration, you could think the higher, the more powerful and the better, but actually you really have to choose carefully the right concentration and to think about it to when we create the formula, because otherwise it can be 56%, mean less alcohol that you were starting to explain before, and alcohol is the carrier. So actually it's going to be a bit less diffusive. So unless you think about the ingredients differently and you compose the fragrance having that in mind, it's not going to be more powerful just because of the concentration. This is one factor, but it's not the only one.
So why did you stop at 56? That's one of the questions.
So because when we were smelling together and working on the project, we were trying different concentration, and 56% was the right one. Meaning, like, again, it might be a bit technical, but the same concentrate at different the same concentrate at different concentration, even though it's the same liquid, the notes won't express the same way. So you're gonna pick, like, for example, at this concentration, something, I don't know, more citrusy, peppery, and at this concentration, more heavier notes or more spices. And so depending on what we wanted to do, to create with this fragrance, when we smelled, we decided that at 56%, it was the right concentration to choose.
Okay, good. So we smelled something at 25% concentration, 56% concentration, and now I'm going to pick a smaller bottle. What is it and what's the concentration?
So this is an attar, and it's pure perfume oil. I mean, it's pure perfume, meaning that this is the most the highest concentration, meaning 100% of the concentrate. No alcohol. It's just concentrate right in the bottle. And this is, I think, from the color.
And you apply it so drop by drop, right? Yeah. So drop by drop, you apply drop by drop, and this perfume contains a very special quality of oud, right? What is oud, Cécile?
So this oud comes from Assam, which is a region, a part of India, and I chose this specific oud oil for oud Ulia because I think that it's the most qualitative and beautiful quality of oud oil, because I smelled many. And depending on what you wanna tell, Oud Ulia was really focused on oud, and for me the best quality was the Oud Assam oil, so that's why I used it. And back to also what you said about the generosity of Amouage and the ingredients, that I think I have to highlight, is it also reflects in the ingredients that we perfumers are able and allowed to use, meaning that you allow us to work with a comfortable budget regarding the fragrance, meaning we are able to use the best quality of ingredients and in high dosage in order to create the Amouage fragrances. That's something I really need to highlight as a perfumer, because it's not always the case, and this is the case for Amouage. And especially, I don't even, don't get me started with the Oud Ulia, because this is like, I have kind of carte blanche of this one. Sorry, I didn't hear. Was there again?
We need a drop, and you cannot hear me, Cécile, or no?
No, I couldn't. Can you repeat, please?
Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, I said it's a beautiful creation. You only need one drop, and you get like the full fragrance experience. So we talked about the ingredients. I see an interesting question. Like some people say that perfumes make them nostalgic. Is there, you know, a scent memory that makes you nostalgic, or that you associate with I don't know, good memory or childhood or something like that? What would be that scent for you, Cécile?
Well, actually, I don't know if some people have experienced it, but I would say wine leaves, like stuffed leaves. If you're familiar, for example, with the Armenian, Lebanese cuisine, even part of Greece, this is like you use the wine leaves and it's stuffed, and it has this blend of spices and the specific smells also of the leaves that my grandmother used to cook. And for me, this is a trigger to very good childhood memories.
Yeah, that's I love that. For me, I mean, personally, it's, I would say, the smell of roasted chestnuts when it's really cold, you know, and people are roasting those chestnuts in the streets, for example, in Europe, and just like the smell of like burnt chestnut. I find it very very reminiscent of childhood and so on. But we were about to talk about something important. So we mentioned how the ingredients and the concentrations are very important when you want to make like high perfumery. But there is one extra, I would say, ingredient, or one secret ingredient in a way. And I think nobody talks about that in perfumery, or not many people, which is the time. And maybe, you know, a lot of people in the audience might not know that fragrances actually do need to age, particularly if they contain a lot of natural ingredients to fully develop, you know. So if a fragrance is too fresh, it's probably, you know, not going to smell as good as a fragrance that has been sitting for a bit of time and so on. So at Amouage, we age all of our fragrances in our manufacture. So I'm actually sitting on top of the manufacturer right now. The fragrances, they all sit in big containers, like metallic containers, and they age according to two steps that we call maturation and maceration for usually between 6 weeks and up to 6 months. So quite a long time. And it makes like the blend much smoother. All of the ingredients work very well together. And also it develops the technical qualities of the fragrances that we mentioned, like the long lastingness and the diffusion. However, recently, Amouage introduced something quite, I would say, exceptional and unique in perfumery, which is the concept of the essences. I mean, we had been working together with Cécile for many years, actually, on a beautiful creation that follows a very production process. Can you maybe explain? So what I'm showing, so what's the nutrition, but also what is special?
So you're showing the outlines that I created for the Essences collection. And what is specific about it is the aging process that you're gonna explain a bit more afterwards. But so outlines is 30% concentration, actually. And in a couple of words, if I have to summarize it to three ingredients, I would say that you smell on top a lot of lemon. Then it's a beautiful patchouli, opulent patchouli. And then you have this ambery base and dry down for outlines. And that was my I wanted to work on as we mentioned before, on a classic in perfumery patchouli that we used to have in the past, and that used to be very strong and powerful fragrances back in the days in the 80s. And I thought, how about working on it, but in a modern way, in an Amouage way, in a different take. And especially taking our time to develop it and to work on. I mean, in addition to the usual creative process, but adding this special ingredients of time through the aging process that you may going to explain after.
Yeah. So totally. So when it comes to the aging process, I mentioned that usually we age perfumes in metallic tanks at Amouage. And here, actually, we decided to use wooden casks made out of from France, French wood engine. So infusing ethanol gives a beautiful woody patina to the fragrances that you cannot replicate differently. So I think I'm having some technical issues when it comes to the connection, right, Cécile? But we are like approaching to the end of the event. I apologize for the technical issues. I hope that we could still share you know, a good moment together, and I hope that you could feel the passion for perfumery. Thank you, Cécile, for your time and for your availability. I don't know if there is something else you would like to say, you know, before we wrap up.
I'm just wondering if we're still, I mean, we have the technical issues, I think, mostly coming from Oman. I don't know if are we ending now or the Q&A? I don't know. It's okay. We're gonna wrap up. Okay.
Yeah, if there are no more questions, I'm sure like Cécile has a good connection, so she can answer like a few extra questions. So if there is any question, don't hesitate to drop them, but otherwise, you can also ask them, you know, to Cécile or myself afterwards. We are on social media and so on, so don't hesitate.
Yes. Yeah, I mean,
but it was a pleasure despite the challenges.
so I hope to wrap up, I think let's forget about the explanation about our last one outlines, but actually the best way just to smell it, no technical issue about it. And yes, I hope you will be able to fully enjoy the double infusion process that Renaud was starting to share. And so thank you for having me. Thank you for having us. It was really a pleasure to share my passion and my job with you tonight. And I hope, despite the technical issues, it was a good moment together. At least it was for me. So yes, don't hesitate if you do have some questions now, or as Renaud mentioned, we are quite reachable through social medias. So please don't hesitate. I think it's very important to share our passion with you all. And part of it is also to learn more and to share this passion through a little bit of education and fun.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Cécile.
Thank you.